always loved animals, and I've always loved to draw animals. I think where it started, there were two things. My parents took me to see Fantasia when I was 4. And those flying horses and those dinosaurs, and even the creatures from Night on Bald Mountain stuck with me ever since then. Also, my grandfather had a ranch with horses, so I grew up with horses all my life. And I still love and I'm just absolutely horse crazy. My father had been all the way through medical school and taught biology, and so he's always taking my sister, myself, and my mother to the zoos and museums and all that. And so I had all that early exposure, and that's really the germ of it. There's something inside me that wants to really know how to just draw animals really, really well, and I see how much I still need to learn how to do. And then I think, oh my goodness, there's no time to waste because I'm not getting any younger. And so I think that's what pushes me forward. And there's so much beauty in how animals are designed that I want other people to realize that. When you tell a story using animals, you can tell a story about anything. You don't have to worry about being politically correct. You don't have to worry about insulting certain social groups. You don't have to worry about, that animals, creatures, they can say what you'd like to say in whatever way you want to say it, within reason, obviously. But yeah, you can talk about war, you can talk about racism, you can talk about the environment with animals. They can be wonderful spokespeople, and everybody likes animals. First of all, it's looking at animals, real ones, and then seeing through the fur or the feathers or the scales, visualizing what's going on underneath. And then how do those forms, as they move through time and space, affect the total form, affect what it looks like? How does a cat in mid-leaf look as opposed to when it's just landing, or as opposed to when it's all bunched up in the sun, purring away? What about a horse when it's laying down flat on its side, enjoying, I'm going to have a sunbake? And when it gets up by means of its forelegs, whereas a cow, when it wants to lie down, it crunches down that way. But how does that affect? And then when they just do whatever they want to do, an animal being itself is a lot more fantastic than us putting into a dramatic situation. So when you're designing an animal or an imaginary animal, what is it like for that animal to live in the environment of that film? Like if it's another planet, is it a forest, whatever? What is the experience like? What does it have to think about? What does it expect? What does it need to be prepared for to do? Say like I was designing, let's say there's going to be a new animated feature of Black Beauty. And so my job is to design Black Beauty and Merrylegs and the other horse characters. I have to imagine what Black Beauty, the horse, is thinking about, and to imagine that, what it's like. And then same thing if I was designing Puff the Magic Dragon for the movie Puff the Magic Dragon. Well, what is it like to be Puff? What is it like to be that dragon? And what would Puff look like to live in the land of Anomaly? What is Anomaly like? The challenge is drawing creatures that are just as natural as what we already see. And so I take special care as to kind of convey that same sort of thing, and only giving a creature just exactly what it needs to survive and not extra, because when you start putting extra stuff on it, it starts to become a fantasy animal that you really can't believe in.
Right.
Like
so
a 5-headed dragon with 200 eyes. I mean, it's not going to work in the real world unless it's a sea anemone or something. I would say beyond just the mechanics of the animals as living bodies, there's also what makes it alive. So there's that spiritual dimension that inhabits those bodies that makes it more than the sum of its parts. As human beings, we all have stories and histories. We're more than just a body that walks around and says, I'm going to eat an ice cream cone, And animals are that way too. And I looked at, just having ridden horses for so many years, and the interchange you have between your mind and the horse's mind, and the horse's body and your body, and how that works and how you communicate is a marvelous thing. It's hard to put into words. The same thing with my little dog, Timmy. I actually trained him to be a service animal, and how how you respond back and forth, and how he has, just when he's sleeping, watch that animal dream. So you know that he's having thoughts and he's having experiences that are translating into his dreams. When he looks at me a certain way, when he wants something, he's more than just what he looks like. He's got a mind that's actually thinking little thoughts. Right? And there's so much beauty in how animals are designed that I want other people to realize that. And maybe that's one of the reasons that it's so important to me. Drawing creatures is just kind of like a natural part of that. It's kind of an appreciation of what already exists out there, because that's what inspires me. When the first film came out and I was a senior in high school, boy, that dates me. And I thought, boy, this is amazing. And I was really especially intrigued by The Empire Strikes Back, when that Tauntauns, which were animated, helped in part by Ray Harryhausen, when those trotted across the scene, I said, yes, that is marvelous. Of course, I always liked Harryhausen anyway.
Yeah.
The three illustrators that made a lasting, to this day, impact on myself are Jay Matterns, who did the wonderful, absolutely wonderful murals at the Smithsonian Institution, and Bob Kuhn, who recently passed away, one of the best wildlife artists ever. He knew those animals, especially the felines. And then another artist who is deceased, William D. Barry, beautiful North American species, moose, rodents, whatever, just absolutely wonderful. So those three artists, I can think of others, Paul Bransom, for example, who was also very, very, very good. And there's obviously living animal artists today that I admire, but if I had to say who were the big three for myself, it would be Bob Kuhn, Jay Matterns, and William D. Barry. No question about it. Well, Anomaly is a wonderful blend of science fiction set in a natural science museum, so it's a perfect place to talk about this sort of thing. I mean, I'm looking at this beautiful articulated blue whale skeleton above, and I've started some doodles of a creature that's based on a blue whale and a whippet. So you take a very slender, petite, almost gazelle-like dog, and there's this massive, leviathan up there, which is like the big and very, very dainty. And it's very, very, very early stages here, but you can see that.
I see the whippet.
The tucked-in waist, but it's not quite as thin as the whippets. The whippets will be way up here, because this is, after all, it's a whale mother and a whippet father. I don't know how they got together, but somehow it happened. And but you have the long tail to help it swim, and you've got legs that are midway in length between let's say the whale's flippers and the dog's length. But I haven't decided how flipperish or dog-like yet I'm going to make it. So it's kind of this hybrid animal. But I thought, let's do a whale whippet or a whippet whale-ish thing, without it being a chimera, which a chimera is just anything that's kind of been cut apart and stitched together. My pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.